What up, what up, what up? Okay, so today coming at you guys with a new topic, and this is a topic that is a real favorite of mine as far as like doing these videos. I've been looking forward to covering this, and it's a little bit different, but I think you guys will really find it of value, and it has certainly been extremely practical. I mean, everything in here is extremely practical, so let's get to it. So basically, first and foremost, obviously we already know, if you're a fan of transurfing, there's two realities that we are simultaneously living in, and of course I know it's kind of strange to at first grapple with and deal with that as the nature of things, but there is the manifest and then the non-manifest, and of course he calls them the inner and outer worlds. In this, same thing, of course, different labels. Let's get to it. So the first law, and these are 6 laws that are universal laws, much like the law of gravity or what have you. So the first is that thoughts are real forces. So what this really means, because I know that when you first hear that, it's kind of like, okay, and what else is there to that? It really just deal with that. Being a real force. What do you think of when you think of a force? You think of a force of nature, the force of gravity, as we just said. Forces are they act on things and change them. And of course, forces have different magnitudes, and in physics you learn about force and the way that it interacts with everything. So when you begin to start grasping of this concept that your thoughts are not merely just puffs of cloud and puffs of air in the wind, but that they're actually more like hurricanes and tornado, more closer to a torrent, like the wind current that could perpetually make a tornado happen. And of course they say there's that butterfly effect, when a butterfly flaps its wings and then a storm is created in a different continent somewhere. You can think about it like that, however makes sense, but realize that every single time you are thinking a thought, you are sending out an energetic force that is now impacting and acting upon the reality around you. And that brings us to number 2. So the second law is that the mind is a sending and receiving station of thought. So just like we are constantly sending out these thoughts, sending out these forces into the universe, into the world, we are also at all times receiving thoughts. Whether we are, of course, the first example that would come to mind is you're talking to somebody and you're receiving the energy that they're putting out, or receiving their thoughts as they speak to you and as they convey their ideas. But that is not really, that's a given. Well, what I'm talking about is what we were talking about, what John Kehoe, which is the guy that wrote this course, is getting at, is that, well, while we walk around here, while we are in our day-to-day, whatever we're doing, whether we're at work, we're at school, we're in class, whatever we're at, we are constantly absorbing the thoughts of all those around us. We're at a party, where, like I said, anywhere you are, the people around you in the close vicinity, but also not even just around you proximity-wise, you are constantly absorbing. You're a Nassim Haramein, who is a quantum physicist. I got this idea from him. He said this at a lecture. He said, at Lightning in a Bottle, I was there, I was watching him live. He said that we are like black holes and white holes walking around. And obviously we know what a black hole is. It's sucking in everything. That's what I'm telling you guys. So you are receiving everything, and then at the same time, everything that you are thinking, you are having that is acting upon the outside of you, the physical, the non-physical outside of you, and it's having an impact. It is a force, and it is having an impact. So number 3 on the list is that, well, it's pretty much the law of attraction. It's thoughts that are emotionalized become magnetized and bring similar and like thoughts. So now realize that whenever you are thinking these thoughts or you're receiving those of other people, whether it's people that are gossiping, you can sense people's energy. I know I, for one, and I know a lot of, pretty much everybody can do this. When you walk into a room and you sense that there's tension, and you may not realize, of course there's some, in certain situations there's obvious signs, but then in other situations it's not so obvious, but yet you feel the tension. And that's an example of, you receiving these thought waves and these thought vibrations that people are sending out. But when you receive those, and if you, like, let's say that something happens, like let's say that you didn't get accepted, or that the people that you wanted to work with, you put out like a proposal to work and collaborate or something, and they just didn't reply, or they said, hey, you know what, we're not interested, it's not going to be a good fit, whatever. You didn't get what you wanted. Now, say that you suffered this failure, or in instance we call it failure or defeat, but what if, and the reason I put a quotation mark right there is because you were thinking, now you could possibly take this in two directions. You could say either I'm a failure, or I simply failed in that one instance to get, in that certain attempt doesn't classify me as a failure. But a lot of the time we kind of take this and we run with it, and then we cycle this in our head. So if I'm a failure at that, then that also must mean that I'm not any good. And then if I'm not any good, then maybe I'm not as good as them. And if I'm not as good as them, then am I even worthy? And maybe I'm just not worthy. And so it's very easy to follow a kind of pattern that if we do follow that, the more it has a snowball effect. So the more and more that we start thinking along these lines of the glass being half empty rather than half full, and that we are powerless, now we're in a state where we're reacting rather than acting. And so the flip side of that would be, so you didn't get rejected, or you didn't get accepted, sorry. So like Michael Jordan, for instance, didn't get accepted on the high school basketball team when he tried out. And he was so, upset by this, but he took it in the other direction, so he allowed it to fuel him. And he would also, he had a rivalry with one of his brothers, and in all, if you look at that guy's life, if you read his biography, which I read a couple years back, you get the idea that every single quote-unquote failure or defeat that this guy suffered through was not he didn't view it as like a sign to give up. In fact, it was quite the opposite. He viewed it as, well, now this just makes my path and my goal that much more clear, that I must be that much better now. It sparked something within him, and which is what we can allow these temporary defeats to do with us as well. So number 4 is that we are forever, and it's kind of cool because this kind of naturally brought us here in the progression, but we are forever experiencing thought, but we have the power and ability to either entertain these thoughts or to dismiss them. So, like I said in that example, you don't make the team, you don't end up collabing with the people that you wanted to collab with. You're not working with the people that you wanted to. Maybe you're not seeing or socially hanging out with the people that you want to be. Are you looking at that as this is a sign that I am a failure and that I maybe am not meant for greatness? Or are you looking at that like, okay, so let's see what I can take from this now. Let's see what this must mean. I must have to improve this area, this area, this area, and go from there. Number 5 is insertion, and that is that we have the power and ability to insert any thought of any kind into our mind. So that's kind of goes with the same example that I just discussed. But one thing that is great about this is that, like I said before, I mentioned greatness. So it's like one thing that I do when I'm thinking about things that I want to insert is that I was born for greatness. And every single thing that happens to me throughout my day, whether it's me stubbing my toe or getting a no when I try to make that sale or when I go for that close, I'm just saying, hey, this is just another thing that's making me even more great. This is just another thing along my journey to success, and every single thing is leading me towards success. Every single time I stub my toe, every single time somebody slams a door in my face, it is leading me closer and bringing me closer and closer to my success and my ultimate success and victory. So that can be an extremely powerful thing, because oftentimes we are faced with defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat. And I forget where I heard this, but somebody said, there was some quote about success is the ability to not lose enthusiasm after every single defeat, or to somehow they described it as to face defeat after defeat after defeat without losing any enthusiasm. And that, I would agree with that. I mean, I think within the same place, I heard that George Clooney was acting and going to different auditions until he was in his 30s, and he didn't even get the role of ER until he was in his 30s. And that's what made all the difference, was he didn't lose that enthusiasm. He didn't lose that spark, that faith that his success is coming, and that can oftentimes make an entire world of difference. I know Napoleon Hill actually have another quote on my wall by him that says, "The majority of men meet with failure because of their lack of persistency in coming up with new plans after those plans that fail." And so that was a really inspiring quote for me as well. That's why I put it on my vision board. So realizing that we have this power to insert, that thoughts are real forces, and that we have the power to insert any thought of our choosing into our mind, really empowers us, because it now gives us an opportunity, rather than being in this state where we're pushed back all the time and constantly in reaction to this outer world around us, this physical side of the dual mirror. Now we're able to really take the power in our hands and take the reins back and say, you know what? I'm actually, so say that something bad happens to you during your day. You get, somebody cuts you off in traffic, for instance. I mean, it's a real common one, right? But it can honestly kind of spark like these embers that are already, there's like this, I've noticed that there's, we have all these different words for these negative sort of emotions, annoyance, frustration, anger, hatred. But really what it is too, though, is like, it's this feeling. Like, I feel it like in the pit of my solar plexus, I start to get this warmth, and it's this sensation. But no matter what kind of label we put on it, the more that we are able to kind of experience what it is, so that person cuts us off, right? And then go into like observer mode, go into a mode where we're not so much identifying with it and taking it so personally, and allowing it to really fuel that fire. As I said, those embers are still there, and they're ready to be turned into a flame over the smallest thing. Just from all the things, all the little things in our life that have happened, and they may not be little, but all the things in our life that have happened to us. So for us to have a conscious decision, and that's the power of insertion right here, is like, we can insert that we want to be, or that we've chosen, we can make the decision that I'm a man or a woman that likes to look at the best in people and likes to see the best in the situation at hand, and maintains to the best of my ability, a calm demeanor in the face of adversity, and somebody that is, choose how you want to act. There's so many different examples of when you get pushed into that state of reaction, you're hypnotized by what's going on out externally. It's very easy to seek a path of vengeance, to seek a path of, vengeance. So it's like with the example of an eye for an eye, it's like, where does that lead up? Then it goes to a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, and then battles have been fought and many wars have been waged in this perpetuating cycle. So one thing that we can do is, rather than allowing that to kind of take control of us, because at that point when we've entered that state of reaction, as much as we wouldn't like to admit it, we're now almost like a pawn in somebody else's game, because we have now embraced the fact that they've done this, so now I have to do this. It's like we're not in control of ourselves anymore. So rather than view it like that, you can choose to make a decision that, hey, you know what, I'm going to forgive this person. Like, let's say that somebody stole something from you. It's an example that I know a lot of people can relate to, right? And rather than going out there and slashing his tires, which you don't know when the cycle will end. Like, this is just a very, very basic example. Of course, like I said, it could be a lot worse than this, but like, you slash his tires, then what happens after that? Maybe he tries to come find you. He tries to, you put yourself in danger. You put your loved ones in danger, all because of this kind of petty thing. And then it just escalates and escalates. So rather than that, you can choose to forgive this person, and you don't even have to label it as forgiveness if you don't want to, because maybe they've done something worse. Maybe they haven't merely stolen something from you, but maybe they've done something worse than that. And maybe you don't want to put the label forgiveness, but in any case, it's just a label. But maybe what you can do, though, is wipe that slate clean, because you realize that by you harboring this hatred for this person and you acting and living through that, not only are you degenerating your own body by putting yourself in a state of tension and dis-ease, where you're not at ease, you're not in a relaxed state, which is a healthy state, which is a state where your body is able to regenerate and work to its optimum. But now you're also having an adverse effect on those around you, because by carrying that burden of hatred and embodying those emotions in that state of being, you are having an adverse effect on other people around you as well. So you can choose to wipe that plate clean, not for them, but for yourself. And that is something that, as I've said, we have the conscious, once we kind of detach from our emotional, being so far in the problem, and bringing our awareness back out and kind of taking a bird's eye view of the situation, a more objective view, we can insert these things. We can insert, because we have the power and ability to put any thought that we choose into our mind. And one of those thoughts could be that, hey, you know what, I know that this, even though this is unforgivable what this person's done, I know, though, that nothing good is going to come from my revenge or my entertaining these negative states. So I'm making the conscious choice. It's not because I'm a coward or whatever other word or verbiage you want to use with that. It's not because of those things. It's because I've made this conscious choice. So number 6 with these laws is the law of connection. And that is that the inner and outer worlds are connected. The outer world of our circumstances and situations and the inner of our thoughts and reactions are connected. And now, for the first case, that is so obvious because, as I've said, it's almost like we are literally hypnotized by what is going on in the outer world on this physical side of the mirror. It's almost like we have lost sight that there is this other side of the mirror. And that's why a lot of people, when you bring up, or even just bringing up the fact that there are two worlds, people are going to look at you like, what, are you crazy? Because we have lost sight of the fact that the outer world, and as it says in here, so the outer world is a reflection of the inner. But obviously the inner, you're also going to react inner to what's going on in the outer. And that goes without being said. So knowing that, and having these laws in your tool belt will hopefully help you to be able to see things, to give yourself a new perspective on things. And what I would recommend, as he recommends and as part of this course, is to daily, or even, well, daily is what is really going to make a difference. Think of each of these laws and think about them for 5 minutes apiece each. And when I say think about them and contemplate them, I mean go in depth with what does this really mean for you? Because we all have our own, obviously lives that we are in and living. And when we can contemplate what these means and what these mean to us, we can really develop an understanding of how we can utilize this mind power to our advantage, and for those around us. And we don't have to constantly be in that reacting mode anymore. And it's something that is kind of tough to realize when you start doing this, is to realize how much time you spend reacting to things rather than acting, and how much time you spend being at effect rather than at the cause of the circumstances around you. But it's something that we definitely have to become aware of if we aim to kind of change and become the one acting and the one taking responsibility for the things going on around us. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and not only enjoyed it, but I hope that it kind of leaves you with, like I said, some tools that you can use. And I know that it's tough. You're not going to want to do this every single day for 30 minutes. There's tons of days that I barely even started doing this. Like, I spent the whole past almost year not doing this. But I'm getting back into it again. Of course, I've used other things in the meantime. But this is it's really powerful. I've noticed significant changes in my last summer and my life just by bringing my awareness to these things, and contemplating them every single day. Because every single day we run into new obstacles, new difficulties, new achievements as well, new solutions, and everything every day is new. So thinking about these every single day is what really allows you to tap into a space, like I said, where you can create rather than react. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you guys' watching this, and I appreciate any feedback you have to give, any insights that you guys have on these as well. If you guys have ever heard of John Kehoe or used any of his other material, or what your guys' experience has been like with it. And definitely feel free to leave me a comment below, and also please give me a like and subscribe if you thought this was valuable, if you liked it. And I will see you guys soon. I'm going to be dropping more of these more consistently. Anyways, guys, thanks. Peace.